Hey guys, tonight we are not going to a bustling Roman market or a drafty medieval castle. Instead, we're taking a much quieter trip, one that smells of red earth after a brief rain and warm grass in the late sun. We are heading to the rolling, acacia-dotted hills of 19th century KwaZulu-Natal, a time and place where healing was a conversation between people, plants, and the quiet whispers of the ancestors. It's a world that moved at the speed of a slow ox cart, which, to be honest, sounds pretty good right about now. A small warning though, this is a journey into a world without Wi-Fi, without antibiotics, and without a conveniently located pharmacy that sells emergency snacks. Frankly, you probably wouldn't survive this without a serious adjustment to your expectations of customer service and personal space. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I'd love to see where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always a quiet thrill to see this sleepy community span the globe. Asterisk now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, the air is warm and soft against your skin, like a worn linen blanket. It carries the scent of dust, of sun-baked earth, and something else. A faint, sweet smell of distant wood smoke that promises community and a coming meal. You are walking, but not in a hurry. Your feet bare against the ground, press into a path of fine reddish-orange soil that feels almost like velvet. This isn't a road built for wheels or armies. It's a footpath, worn into the landscape by generations of people walking this same gentle route. It curves and dips with the land, respecting the contours of the hills instead of cutting through them. Asterisk, above you, the sky is a vast pale blue, beginning to blush with the gold and rose of a slowly setting sun. The light is long and forgiving, casting shadows that stretch like lazy cats. Dotted across the landscape are acacia trees, their iconic flat tops looking like natural umbrellas, providing shade for creatures you can't yet see. The world here feels wide open, uncluttered. Your mind, which arrived here still buzzing with the noise of your own time, begins to quiet down, matching its rhythm to the soft pad of your footsteps on the earth. There is no deadline here, no urgent notification demanding your attention. There is only the path, the warm air, and the growing sense of peace. Asterisk, after a while, a sound reaches you, carried on the gentle breeze. It's a low, resonant sound, the contented lowing of cattle. It's soon followed by the murmur of voices, too distant to make out words, but the cadence is calm, conversational. The smell of wood smoke is stronger now, more distinct, and then you see it. Tucked into a gentle slope, nestled as if it grew there, is a Zulu homestead, an umuzi. Asterisk, it's not a fortress or a city, but a self-contained, circular community of huts. This is the fundamental unit of traditional Zulu society, a carefully planned microcosm of their world. From your vantage point on the path, you can see the elegant, organic logic of its design. A collection of beehive-shaped huts, called indulu, are arranged in a neat crescent, their low doorways all facing a large central enclosure. This central space, the isabaya, is the heart of the homestead. It is the cattle kraal, a symbol of wealth, status, and spiritual connection to the ancestors. Cattle weren't just livestock. They were the community's bank, its dowry, and its direct line to the spirit world. Protecting them was protecting the family's entire future. Asterisk, you notice a small, almost unnoticeable detail about the homestead's placement. Its main entrance, a gap in the outer fence of scrub and branches, is positioned at the lowest point, facing downhill. This is a subtle but brilliant piece of pre-modern engineering. It's a practical defense against the elements, ensuring that the prevailing winds and rains flow away from the family living quarters. The most prominent hut, slightly larger than the others, sits at the very top of the crescent, directly opposite the entrance. This is the home of the headman, giving him a perfect, unobstructed view of his family, his property, and most importantly, his precious cattle. It's a design that is both deeply practical and quietly hierarchical. Asterisk. Historians and archaeologists still wonder about the profound significance of this circular layout. Was its primary purpose defensive, a way to create a natural fortress with the cattle at its protected core? Or did the circle hold a deeper cosmological meaning, reflecting a belief in the cyclical nature of time, the seasons, and life itself? Some argue it simply represents the bonds of kinship, a physical manifestation of a community that encircles and supports its members. The truth is likely a gentle fusion of all three, a place where the practical need for safety blended seamlessly with a philosophical understanding of the world. It's a home, a fortress, and a temple, all in one elegant, circular design. Asterisk. You find yourself pausing at the edge of the homestead, just before the path leads you through the simple, branch-woven gateway. You take a deep breath, the air now thick with the scent of hearth fires and cooking. You can hear the soft chatter of people winding down their day, the occasional laugh of a child. This is the threshold. You are about to step from the wild, open veld into the intimate, ordered world of the umuzi. The light has softened even more, the sun now a gentle glow behind the hills. A feeling of calm anticipation settles over you. You are a quiet visitor, here to listen and to learn, ready to enter their world of surprising gentleness. You step through the simple gate, and the feeling of the world changes instantly. The ground beneath your feet is no longer the soft, wild earth of the path, but a firm, swept surface, smooth and cool. It's a space that is clearly cared for, tended to with daily diligence. The air inside the homestead feels different, toothier, more domestic, filled with the specific scents and sounds of a home settling in for the evening. You have crossed from the wilderness into a place of order and community. Asterisk. Your eyes are drawn to the huts themselves. They are masterpieces of natural architecture. Each one is a perfect dome, a woven sphere of long, golden brown grass over a sturdy framework of saplings. The thatch is layered so thickly and woven with such incredible skill that it would shed the heaviest summer downpour. You can see the intricate patterns where the grass is tied down with natural rope, creating subtle textures on the surface. These aren't just shelters, they are sculptures. This was traditionally the work of Zulu women, a highly respected skill passed down through generations. The men would cut and prepare the saplings, but the weaving, the shaping, the waterproofing, that was a woman's art. It's a bit like assembling a piece of flat-pack furniture, except the instructions are carried in your memory, and the final result is a beautiful, waterproof home instead of a wobbly bookcase. Asterisk. A woman kneels on a woven grass mat near one of the huts. In front of her is a large, smooth, flattish stone, and a smaller, rounded one she holds in her hands. With a steady, rhythmic motion, a soft scrape, and a gentle, percussive knock, she grinds maize kernels into a fine, white flour. It's a soothing, hypnotic sound that has been the backing track to this time of day for centuries. The scent of the dry grain, slightly sweet and dusty, mixes with the woods. Nearby, a cast iron pot sits over a small, contained fire, a gentle plume of steam rising from its lid. No one is rushing. The tasks of the evening are completed with an unhurried grace, a flow that suggests this rhythm has been perfected over a very long time. Asterisk. You turn your attention to the center of the homestead, to the vast cattle enclosure. The Isabaya is more than just a pen. It's the symbolic and literal heart of this world. The cattle are in for the night, their great, horned shapes silhouetted against the fading light. They are mostly still, some lying down in the dust, others standing with a quiet patience. You hear the soft huff of their breath, the swish of a tail, the gentle clink of horn against horn. The smell is earthy and animal, a scent of hay and warm bodies that signifies security and life, which you likely wouldn't know. just by looking, is that the Isebia often served another, more sacred purpose. It was sometimes the final resting place for the head of the family. To be buried within the cattle enclosure was to remain at the very heart of the home, your spirit protecting the family's wealth and connecting the living to the ancestors. It's a powerful idea that your most valuable assets and your most revered dead would share the same hallowed ground. Asterisk. The social geography of the homestead is a quiet story told in its layout. You can see how the wives' huts are arranged in a specific order on either side of the headman's great hut, a reflection of seniority and status within the family. It looks, from a distance, like a very rigid and prescribed world. And yet, historians often debate the real texture of these social rules. While the structure was undeniably patriarchal, was daily life as formal as the architecture suggests? Each woman was the head of her own household, responsible for her hut, her children, and her own gardens just outside the homestead. This gave her a significant sphere of influence and autonomy. It was her domain, her responsibility, and her quiet power. The structure provided the frame, but within it, there was a whole world of individual agency and complex social negotiation that we can now only glimpse. Asterisk. As you stand there, a quiet observer, taking in this peaceful, complex world, an older woman with kind eyes and intricately braided hair detaches herself from a small group sitting near a fire. She doesn't speak, not at first. She simply offers a small, knowing smile. There is no suspicion in her gaze, only a calm acceptance of your presence. She gives a slight nod of her head, a gesture that is both a welcome and an instruction. She wants you to follow. She turns and begins to walk, not towards the great hut at the head of the homestead, but towards one set slightly apart from the others, one from which a different, more pungent and mysterious aroma seems to be drifting. It is the scent of dried leaves, of roots, and of something faintly medicinal. Your heart gives a quiet flutter. Your journey to the healer's door is about to begin. You follow the woman, her bare feet making almost no sound on the swept earth. The hut she leads you to is structurally identical to the others, the same perfect beehive shape, the same masterfully woven thatch, yet it feels different. Set slightly away from the main crescent of family homes, it possesses an air of quiet solitude, a space that is part of the community, but also holds a separate purpose. As you draw closer, the unique aroma intensifies. It's a complex, layered scent, unlike the simple domestic smells of wood smoke and cooking maize. This is the smell of a well-stocked pantry, but one where the ingredients are not for a meal, but for mending the body and spirit. It's earthy, pungent, and deeply organic, a blend of dried roots, crushed leaves, bark, and something vaguely floral. Asterisk. The woman lifts the heavy hide flap that serves as a door, holding it open for you. She gestures for you to enter, a silent invitation into this sacred space. You duck your head and step inside, moving from the dusky twilight into a soft, encompassing darkness. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. The air inside is thick with the botanical scent, and it's surprisingly cool, insulated by the thick grass walls. The only light comes from the low doorway and a few slivers that manage to pierce the thatch, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Asterisk. As your vision sharpens, you begin to make out the details of the interior. The floor is made of polished earth, hard and smooth as stone, a mixture of clay and dung that has been burnished to a dark, lustrous sheen. It's cool under your feet. The circular space is larger than it appeared from the outside, and the domed roof, a marvel of woven grass supported by a central post, rises high above you. But it's what hangs from the roof and lines the walls that truly captures your attention. Asterisk. Dozens upon dozens of bundles hang from the interior framework, suspended like strange, organic chandeliers. They are bunches of dried herbs, leaves, and flowers, tied neatly with grass twine. There are long, gnarled roots, strips of bark in various shades of brown and gray, and pouches made of animal skin, bulging with unseen contents. Along the curved walls, clay pots of various sizes are neatly arranged, some sealed with smaller clay lids, others holding mysterious powders and ointments. A few calabash hollowed-out gourds sit in a row, their smooth, pale surfaces a contrast to the dark earth floor. This is not a place of chaos. It is a library of natural remedies, a meticulously organized botanical pharmacy. Every item has its place, its purpose, its story. Asterisk sitting on a woven grass mat near the center of the hut is a man. He doesn't rise as you enter, but his presence fills the space. He is older, his face a beautiful map of deep lines that speak of a long life filled with observation and thought. He wears a simple leather loincloth and a series of intricate beadwork bands around his wrists and neck. This is the Inyanga, the traditional herbalist. He is not a magician or a witch doctor in the sensationalist sense of the word. He is a scientist, a botanist, and a psychologist all rolled into one. His knowledge, passed down through a long and arduous apprenticeship, is of umuzi, a complex term that encompasses not just medicine, but the intrinsic power and essence of plants and other natural substances. Asterisk, he looks up at you, and his eyes are calm, patient, and incredibly perceptive. There is no judgment in his gaze, only a quiet, waiting intelligence. He pats the mat beside him, another silent invitation. As you sit, the woven grass feels surprisingly comfortable against your skin. You are now within his world, surrounded by the tools of his trade. He still hasn't spoken a word. The silence is not awkward. It is purposeful. It's a space for you to settle, to let the frantic energy of your own world dissipate, and to simply be present. He is observing you, but not in a clinical, detached way. It feels more like he is listening not to your words, but to your posture, your breathing, the quiet energy you've brought into his hut. Asterisk, this initial silence was a crucial part of the consultation process, and Inyanga needed to understand the patient as a whole person, not just a collection of symptoms. The Zulu concept of health, or impilo, was holistic. It encompassed physical well-being, emotional balance, social harmony, and spiritual alignment. A stomachache wasn't just a stomachache. It could be a sign of social friction, a troubled spirit, or an imbalance with the natural world. Therefore, the healer's first job was simply to create a space of trust and quiet observation. It's a far cry from a modern doctor's appointment, where you have approximately 7 minutes to list your complaints before walking out with a prescription. Here, the diagnosis begins the moment you walk through the door, in the shared quiet. One of the lesser-known distinctions in this world is the difference between an Inyanga asterisk like him and an Isangoma the diviner. While both were healers, their methods and roles were distinct. The Inyanga primarily worked with plants and physical remedies. Their knowledge was learned, studied, and passed down. The Isangoma, who you might meet later, was called to their role by the ancestors and worked through spiritual communion and divination. They often worked together, the Isangoma diagnosing the spiritual root of an ailment, and the Inyanga providing the physical umuzi to treat it. Historians continue to explore the nuances of this collaborative healthcare system, a sophisticated partnership that addressed both the body and the soul. Finally, the Inyanga asterisk speaks. His voice is low and raspy, like dry leaves skittering across the ground. He doesn't ask, "What's wrong?" or "Where does it hurt?" He simply says, in a calm, even tone, "Tell me your story." And in the cool, fragrant darkness of his hut, surrounded by the quiet power of the earth's pharmacy, you feel a profound sense of peace settle over you. You are in the hands of a patient, knowledgeable healer. The consultation has begun. Tell me your story. The words hang in the cool, fragrant air of the hut, simple and yet impossibly vast. You didn't come here with a broken leg or a raging fever. You came with something far more modern and nebulous, a quiet hum of anxiety, a feeling of being disconnected, a weariness that sleep doesn't seem to touch. How do you explain that in a world without words for burnout or existential dread? You search for a starting point, a simple narrative, but your thoughts feel like a tangled ball of string. Asterisk, so you just begin? You talk about a restlessness in your spirit, a mind that won't quiet down when the sun sets. You speak of a subtle but persistent ache, not in your bones, but somewhere deeper. A sense of being a stranger in your own skin. You expect him to interrupt, to nod impatiently, to jot down notes on a piece of bark, but he does none of those things. He simply listens. His stillness is absolute, his gaze unwavering. It is the most profound act of listening you have ever experienced. It's the kind of attention that makes you feel like you are the only person in the world, and that your quiet, clumsy story is the most important thing he has ever heard. He doesn't just hear your words. He seems to absorb them, weighing their texture and their temperature. Asterisk, when you finally fall silent, the quiet that returns to the hut is different. It's full, not empty. The Inyanga nods slowly, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement. He has received your story, and then he begins to ask his own questions. And they are not at all what you expected. Asterisk, he doesn't ask about your diet or your exercise habits. He leans forward slightly and asks, when you sleep, who walks with you in your dreams? The question is so unexpected, it almost makes you laugh. Your own doctor has never inquired about your dream companions, which is probably for the best. You try to answer, describing the fragmented, nonsensical narratives of your own sleep. He listens to this with the same intensity as before. Then he asks, tell me about the soil where your grandmother is buried. Is it at peace? Another strange, disarming question that has absolutely nothing to do with your symptoms, and yet feels profoundly important. He continues in this vein. Have you quarreled with your brother recently? Has a shadow fallen between you and your closest friend? Did you hear an owl call your name in the daylight? Asterisk, this, you realize, is the heart of his diagnostic process. He is not looking for a single pathogen or a chemical imbalance. He is searching for a fracture in your network of relationships with your family, with your community, with your ancestors, and with the natural world. To the Zulu way of thinking, illness was often a manifestation of isifo senlolo, a social illness. A conflict with a neighbor could curdle the milk in your stomach. Disrespect for an elder could bring a persistent headache. Forgetting the ancestors could lead to a deep and unshakable melancholy. He is a detective of the soul, and his questions are designed to find the source of the disharmony, the place where the web of your life has become frayed. Asterisk, he might even be listening for signs of something deeper. Many healers, especially the diviners, known as Isangoma, began their journey with a period of intense and inexplicable suffering called This sickness of the calling involved strange visions, erratic behavior, and profound emotional and physical distress. It wasn't seen as a disease to be cured, but as a message from the spirit world, a sign that the ancestors had chosen that person for a sacred path. In this worldview, sometimes your greatest affliction is actually your greatest calling in disguise. It's a comforting thought that your troubles might not be a sign that you're broken, but a sign that you're being prepared for something important. Asterisk, as you sit there, a part of your modern mind can't help but wonder about the mechanisms at play. How much of this is the potent, undeniable power of the placebo effect of being listened to with such profound care? And how much is based on the real, pharmacological properties of the hundreds of plants hanging around you? Western science often tries to separate these two things, to isolate the active ingredient from the ritual. But watching the Inyanga, you start to question that rigid division. Perhaps the true healing lies in the synergy of both. The belief and the botany, the ritual and the root, are not separate forces. They are two hands washing each other. Historians still debate this very point. Was the effectiveness of umuzi rooted in its chemical compounds, or in the profound cultural and psychological context in which it was administered? Maybe asking which one is real is simply asking the wrong question. After a long period of quiet reflection, the Inyanga seems to come to a conclusion. He gives a slow, single nod. He doesn't give your ailment a name, not in the way you're used to. There is no neat label. Instead, he describes your state with a gentle metaphor. Your spirit has been walking on hot stones, he says, his voice soft. It has forgotten the feeling of cool earth. We must reintroduce it to the soil. It is the most accurate and beautiful diagnosis you have ever received. He doesn't reach for a pre-made potion or a pouch of powder. The remedy, it seems, is not something to be simply given, but something to be experienced. He slowly gets to his feet, the movement fluid and graceful despite his age. The consultation, for now, is over. He looks at you, a hint of a smile in his perceptive eyes. Come, he says. The pharmacy is open, but we must walk to it. And with that, he turns and pushes aside the hide flap, letting the last, deep orange rays of sunset flood into the fragrant darkness of the hut. You follow the Inyanga out of the hut, stepping back into the warm evening air. The transition is striking. Inside the hut was a cool, dark, and contained world of human intention, a carefully curated library of nature. Outside is the library itself, vast and open under the deepening indigo sky. The sun has finally dipped below the horizon, but the western sky is still on fire. A brilliant wash of orange, pink, and purple that silhouettes the distant hills. The homestead is quieter now. The rhythmic grinding of maize has ceased, replaced by the soft crackle of cooking fires and the low murmur of families gathered in their doorways. A sense of gentle closure is settling over the umuzi as the day's work ends. But your work, it seems, is just beginning. The Inyanga doesn't head back towards the center of the homestead. Instead, he turns and walks towards a small, almost hidden gap in the back of the circular fence. A path that leads away from the community and back out into the open veld. This feels significant. The journey to healing isn't to be found within the familiar confines of the home, but out there, in the wild, untamed spaces where the real medicine grows. He walks with a purpose, his stride steady and economical. A man who knows this land not as a landscape to be admired, but as a living, breathing partner. As you follow him, the ground becomes uneven again, the soft, wild earth of the veld. The air cools slightly as the last of the day's heat radiates up from the ground. The scents change, too. The domestic smells of smoke and cooking fade behind you, replaced by the fragrance of the nighttime veld. The sweet, hay-like scent of drying grasses. The dusty perfume of unseen wildflowers closing their petals for the night, and the clean mineral smell of the earth itself. It's a subtle but profound aromatherapy session, courtesy of the African wilderness. You walk for a while in comfortable silence. The Inyanga navigates the terrain with an easy familiarity, his bare feet seeming to know the location of every stone and thorny branch. He is not using a torch or a lantern. His eyes, accustomed to this gentle light, are all he needs. You, on the other hand, are a little less graceful, occasionally stumbling. Your city dweller's feet, unaccustomed to this kind of intimate conversation with the ground. It's a humbling reminder of how disconnected you've become from the simple act of walking on the earth. He seems to find this amusing, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips, but he says nothing. It's the kind of quiet, patient humor a grandfather might have for a clumsy grandchild. This journey into the veld was a critical part of the healing process, and it served multiple purposes. Firstly, it was deeply practical. Many plants used in umuzi had to be harvested at specific times, some at dusk, some at dawn, some only after a recent rain. The Inyanga wasn't just grabbing ingredients off a shelf, He was meeting the plants at their most potent, respectful of their own natural rhythms. Secondly, the walk itself was therapeutic. It removed you from the social context of your illness and reconnected you with the natural world. The quiet, the fresh air, the physical act of walking it was all part of the prescription. It's a concept modern medicine is just beginning to catch up with its talk of forest bathing and ecotherapy. For the Inyanga, it wasn't a trend. It was just common sense. The forest was the original clinic. Asterisk, a fascinating and often overlooked aspect of this botanical pharmacy is that it wasn't always a solo expedition. Sometimes, the Inyanga would bring an apprentice, a young person deep in the throes of their yukuthwasa, the sickness of the calling. This walk would be part of their training. The apprentice wouldn't just learn to identify plants. They would learn the specific incantations to be whispered when harvesting, the correct way to make an offering of thanks to the spirit of the plant, and how to take only what was needed, ensuring the plant would thrive for future generations. This was a system of sustainable and spiritual harvesting, a science deeply interwoven with reverence. This knowledge was never written down. It was a living library, passed from memory to memory, from one generation to the next, out here under the stars. Asterisk, the sky above is now a dark, velvety dome, scattered with a breathtaking spray of stars, with no light pollution. The Milky Way is a luminous, milky river flowing across the heavens. The Inyanga finally stops. You are on a small, rocky outcrop, overlooking a gentle slope. He hasn't led you to a cultivated garden or a neat plot of herbs. The pharmacy is simply the landscape itself. It looks to your untrained eye like a random assortment of shrubs, grasses, and low-slung trees. To him, it is a world of possibility, a dense tapestry of cures and comforts. Historians and ethnobotanists are still in the process of documenting the sheer scale of this knowledge, trying to match the Zulu plant names and uses with their scientific classifications. It's a race against time, as much of this oral tradition is in danger of being lost. For every plant whose properties are now validated by modern science, like the African wormwood for fevers or the devil's claw for inflammation, there are hundreds whose secrets are known only to a dwindling number of traditional healers. Asterisk, the Inyanga crouches down, his hand hovering over a small, unassuming-looking shrub with silvery leaves. He doesn't touch it yet. He simply observes it for a moment, a quiet greeting. Then he turns to you, his eyes gleaming in the starlight. The soil remembers, he says softly. Our work is to learn how to listen to what it has to say. He gestures for you to come closer, to kneel beside him. Your first lesson in the botanical pharmacy of the veld is about to begin. You kneel beside him on the cool, rocky ground, the vast, starry sky arching over you. The world has shrunk to this small patch of earth, illuminated by starlight and the profound focus of the old healer. He gestures towards the small, silvery-leafed shrub. Up close, you can see that the leaves are covered in fine, downy hairs that catch the faint light, giving them a soft, ethereal glow. The air around the plant carries a clean, sharp, almost minty scent, like camphor and sage combined. Asterisk, this one, the Inyanga says, his voice a low whisper, as if not to disturb the plant's slumber. Is Inskisi. He doesn't just name it, he introduces it, as one would a respected elder. It is a cleaner of the spirit. When the mind is noisy and the heart is troubled, its leaves, when burned, make a smoke that chases away restless shadows. He is describing the African wormwood, a plant well known across southern Africa for its powerful medicinal properties, while Western science is focused on its anti-malarial and anti-inflammatory compounds. For the Inyanga, its primary power is spiritual, a cleanser of negative energy, a restorer of mental quiet. He's not treating a virus, he's treating a feeling. Asterisk, he shows you how to harvest. He doesn't just tear a branch off. He carefully selects a small sprig, his fingers moving with the precision of a surgeon. Before he plucks it, he murmurs a few quiet words in Zulu, too low for you to understand. This is the crucial act of ukachela, or to ask permission. It is a fundamental principle of his practice. The plant is not an inert resource to be exploited. It is a living entity with its own spirit, and it must be approached with respect and gratitude. After he gently takes the sprig, he presses a small, smooth stone one he carried in his pouch into the earth at the base of the plant, an offering, a thank you. It's a transaction of profound reciprocity. You are taking something, so you must give something back. It's a simple, beautiful act of ecological and spiritual balance that modern society has almost entirely forgotten. Asterisk, he hands the sprig to you. The leaves feel like soft velvet, and the scent is even stronger on your fingers, clean and invigorating. He then points to another, less conspicuous plant growing in the shelter of a rock. It has broad, dark green leaves and a thick, gnarled root that is partially visible above the soil. And this, he says, his voice still a respectful hush, is its root gives strength when the body feels heavy and the will to rise in the morning has faded. This is a type of African ginger, a powerful adaptogen used to combat fatigue and listlessness. He explains that you only ever take a small piece of the root, leaving the main part intact so the plant can heal and continue to grow. He uses a small, sharp piece of stone, not a metal knife, to carefully slice off a tiny nodule, again whispering his thanks as he does so. Asterisk, one of the most charmingly specific and lesser-known details of this practice is that the direction from which a root was harvested could matter. For some remedies, a piece of root growing towards the rising sun was considered to hold energy for beginnings and vitality. A piece growing towards the west, the setting sun, might be used for remedies intended to calm, to bring rest, or to ease things to a close. Historians wonder if this was pure symbolism, a way of embedding the medicine within a larger cosmic story, or if there was an underlying practical reason, perhaps related to the subtle distribution of chemicals in the plant as it follows the sun. Either way, it demonstrates a level of observational detail that is simply breathtaking. It's a bit like a modern chef insisting on using only north-facing basil leaves for their pesto. It sounds eccentric, but it comes from a place of deep, focused attention. Asterisk, he continues the lesson, moving slowly across the rocky outcrop. He introduces you to a plant whose leaves, when crushed, create a soothing balm for skin irritations. He points out a type of grass whose fine roots, when boiled, make a gentle tea to settle a nervous stomach. With each one, the ritual is the same. The quiet introduction, the explanation of its purpose, the respectful request, the careful harvest, and the offering of thanks. He is teaching you a new language, not of words, but of leaves, roots, and scents. You begin to see the veld not as a uniform sea of green and brown, but as a complex community of individuals, each with its own name, its own personality, its own unique gift. Asterisk, you realize that this is the essence of his skill. His knowledge isn't just about identifying plant A to cure symptom B, it's about understanding the intricate web of relationships between all these living things. He knows which plants like to grow near each other, which ones signal the presence of water deep underground, and which ones are favored by certain animals. He might mention offhandedly that the leaves of one plant are a favorite food of the kudu antelope, and that the antelope, in turn, helps to spread its seeds. He sees the entire ecosystem as a single, interacting body, and his healing practice is about understanding how to borrow a small piece of that systemic wisdom to restore balance in the human body. Asterisk, after gathering a small, fragrant collection of leaves and roots, wrapped carefully in a soft piece of hide, he straightens up. He looks back at the plants you have visited, a silent nod of farewell. The veld has given us what we need for tonight, he says. We do not take more than we are given. The lesson is over. It was a lesson in botany, yes, but it was also a lesson in humility, respect, and the quiet art of belonging to a place, as you turn to follow him back towards the distant, glowing fires of the homestead. You carry not just a bundle of herbs, but a profound new understanding. The cure for your disquiet isn't just in the chemical compounds of the plants, but in the very process you just undertook, the quiet walk, the focused attention, the respectful request, and the gentle act of receiving a gift from the earth. You arrive back at the Inyanga's hut as the last vestiges of twilight finally surrendered to the deep, encompassing darkness of the night. The homestead is hushed, the only sounds now being the gentle crackling of embers from the family fires and the vast symphonic hum of insects in the surrounding veld. The air is still and cool. Stepping back inside the hut feels like entering a sanctuary, a space set apart from both the domestic world of the umuzi and the wild world of the veld. It is a place of transformation, where the raw gifts of nature are about to be turned into medicine. The Inyanga doesn't light a large fire. Instead, he carefully tends to a small bed of coals, glowing in a shallow depression in the center of the earthen floor. The light they cast is soft and warm, creating a small, intimate circle of illumination in the fragrant darkness. The low light makes the shadows of the hanging herbs dance gently on the curved walls, giving the space a living, breathing quality. He invites you to sit again on the woven mat, and you watch as he begins the slow, deliberate process of preparing the umuzi. He unwraps the hide bundle, laying out the freshly gathered plants with a quiet reverence. The silvery sprig of Isangoma African wormwood and the small pungent nodule of Amande African ginger look potent and alive in the firelight. This next stage is a performance of patience and precision. There are no machines here, no electric grinders or high-speed blenders. Every action is powered by human energy, and every tool is born of the earth. His primary instruments are a gayo, an imbokodo, a grinding stone, and a smaller rounded pestle, worn smooth by generations of use. First, he takes the leaves of the wormwood. He doesn't just crush them. He places them on the large, slightly concave surface of the stone and begins a slow, circular grinding motion with the smaller stone. It's a hypnotic process. The sound is a soft, rhythmic shushing, a whisper of stone against leaf. As he grinds, the leaves release their volatile oils, and the clean, camphoraceous scent fills the hut. Sharp and clarifying, it smells like clean air, like a fog lifting. He is not rushing to create a powder. He is methodically, patiently breaking down the plant's structure, releasing its essence with care. It's the kind of repetitive, mindful task that modern productivity gurus would call a flow state. For the Inyanga, it's simply the way things are done, properly. Once the leaves are a coarse, fragrant mash, he sets them aside in a small clay bowl. Next, he turns his attention to the piece of ginger root. This requires more effort. He places the nodule on the stone and begins to pound it with the pestle. Not with aggressive force, but with a steady, percussive rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. Each blow is precise, controlled. The sound is deep and resonant, echoing softly in the small, domed space. The spicy, zesty aroma of the ginger rises to join the scent of the wormwood, creating a complex, invigorating perfume. He pounds and grinds until the tough, fibrous root is reduced to a damp, fragrant pulp. This is the slow art of pharmacy. The physical act of grinding and pounding was not just a means to an end. It was part of the medicine's creation, infusing the healer's own energy and intention into the remedy. A little known but fascinating belief held by some healers was that the rhythm of the grinding itself held power. A steady, calm rhythm would impart a soothing quality to the medicine. A more energetic, forceful rhythm might be used for a remedy intended to invigorate and strengthen. It's a wonderful idea that the very sound of the medicine's creation could tune its therapeutic properties. It's like a chef humming a happy tune into their soup to make it taste better. except here, it was a fundamental part of the pharmacology. Asterisk. Now, the Inyanga begins to combine the ingredients. He might add a pinch of dried powder from one of the skin pouches hanging from the ceiling, or a few drops of water from a small clay pot. He mixes them together with his fingers, his movements economical and sure. He is like a master baker kneading dough, feeling the texture, adjusting the consistency by instinct and long practice. The final product is not a uniform, sterile pill. It's a textured, fragrant, and very much alive-looking paste. Historians and pharmacists today are fascinated by these complex formulations. It was rarely a single plant for a single symptom approach. The Inyanga was a master of synergy, understanding that certain plants, when combined, would amplify each other's effects or mitigate potential side effects. One plant might be the primary actor, while another was a supporting player, and a third acted as a catalyst, unlocking the power of the other two. This sophisticated understanding of polypharmacy is something modern medicine is only just beginning to explore with renewed interest. Asterisk. Finally, the preparations are complete. He takes a small amount of the wormwood mash and places it directly onto the glowing coals. A thick, white, aromatic smoke immediately billows upwards, carrying the sharp, cleansing scent throughout the hut. It's not an unpleasant smoke. It's purifying, like incense in a cathedral. He gestures for you to breathe it in. Let the restless shadows go, he says softly. The smoke is the medicine for your spirit. Asterisk. Then, he takes a tiny amount of the ginger paste on his fingertip and gestures towards your tongue. This is the medicine for your body, to restore the strength that has faded. The taste is incredibly potent, fiery, earthy, and intensely alive. It's a shock to the system, but a welcome one, a jolt of pure raw nature. The preparations are done. The art was slow, the process was meditative, and the result feels powerful and real. You sit in the fragrant smoke, the taste of ginger on your tongue, feeling the day's journey settle deep within you. After allowing you a few moments to sit with the cleansing smoke and the potent taste of the ginger, the Inyanga gives another slow, thoughtful nod. He has addressed the symptoms. He can see and feel the hot stones under the feet of your spirit and the weariness in your body. But for him, this is only half of the equation. Treating the manifestation of an illness is one thing. Understanding its root cause is another, more complex task. For that, a different kind of specialist is required. Asterisk. He speaks softly into the quiet of the hut. The body and spirit have been given a soothing balm, he says, his voice a low rumble. Now, we must ask why the path became rocky in the first place. He explains that his role as an Inyanga is to work with the tangible world, the world of roots, leaves, and barks. His knowledge is learned, a vast botanical encyclopedia committed to memory. But some ailments, he tells you, have their origins in the intangible world, the world of relationships, of ancestors, of spirits. To see into that world, one needs a different kind of vision. Asterisk. He rises, and with a gesture, invites you to follow him once more. You step out of his hut, into the deep quiet of the night. The moon has risen now, a perfect silver sickle, casting a soft, ethereal light over the homestead. Most of the family fires have died down to faint orange glows, and the sounds of the community have faded into the gentle breathing of a sleeping umuzi. The Inyanga leads you not across the central cattle kraal, but around its edge, his bare feet silent on the cool earth. The great horned shapes of the cattle are resting, their dark forms immense and still in the moonlight. They seem like ancient guardians, watching over the homestead's slumber. Asterisk. He stops before another hut. This one is not set apart like his own, but is integrated into the main crescent of the homestead. From the outside, it looks no different from any other family dwelling. There are no signs or symbols to mark its special nature. Yet, as you approach, you can feel a subtle shift in the air, a sense of heightened energy. a quiet hum of unseen potential. The Inyanga does not enter. He stands at a respectful distance and makes a soft, distinct coughing sound, a traditional way of announcing one's presence without being intrusive. Asterisk, the hide flap of the doorway is pushed aside, and a woman emerges, silhouetted against the faint light from within. She is an Isa. At first glance, she looks much like the other women of the homestead, but as she steps into the moonlight, you notice the details that set her apart. Her hair is not braided, but worn in a distinctive, intricate style, beaded and matted with red ochre, signifying her sacred status. Around her neck, wrists, and ankles, she wears not just decorative beads, but strings of animal bones, claws, and other potent objects that clink and rattle softly with her movements. Her gaze is different from the Inyanga's. While his was perceptive and analytical, hers is distant and piercing, as if she is looking at you and through you at the same time, seeing a layer of reality that is invisible to you. Asterisk. The relationship between the Inyanga and the Isangoma is one of the most fascinating and often misunderstood aspects of Zulu cosmology. They were not rivals, but partners in a holistic healthcare system. You could think of the Inyanga as the general practitioner and pharmacist, dealing with the physical realm, while the Isangoma was the psychologist and spiritual counselor, addressing the psycho-spiritual. A patient would often see both. The Isangoma would perform a divination to diagnose the ultimate cause of the misfortune, perhaps a neglected ancestor, the malevolent will of an enemy, or a broken social taboo. She would then prescribe the necessary spiritual remedies, which often involved specific rituals or sacrifices. The Inyanga, in turn, would provide the umethia to treat the physical symptoms that had manifested as a result of this spiritual imbalance. Asterisk, the woman, the Isangoma, looks at the Inyanga, and they exchange a few quiet words in Izu. It is a conversation of mutual respect. He is the master of plants. She is the master of spirits. Each honors the other's domain. Then, her intense gaze settles on you. She looks you up and down, not in a judgmental way, but with an unnerving clarity. A faint, knowing smile touches her lips. She turns and gestures for you to enter her hut, a silent command that you feel compelled to obey. Her hut is both similar to, and profoundly different from the Inyanga's. The layout is the same, the circular space, the domed roof, the polished floor. But where his was a library of botany, hers is a theater of spirits. There are no bunches of herbs hanging from the ceiling. Instead, the walls are adorned with more symbolic objects, animal skins, inflated animal bladders which were believed to facilitate communication with the ancestors, ceremonial drums, and dance rattles made from gourds filled with pebbles. The air smells not of herbs, but of old leather, red ochre, and the faint, metallic scent of old sacrifices. In the center, a small fire burns, but its light seems to flicker with a more energetic, unpredictable rhythm. Asterisk, a historical debate still simmers around the role and power of the early colonial observers, misunderstanding their role, often dismissed them as witch doctors, focusing on the more dramatic and theatrical elements of their practice. But modern scholarship recognizes them as crucial social and psychological figures within their communities. They were the keepers of the collective memory, the mediators of social disputes, and the counselors for a society's deepest anxieties. Their diagnostic process was not about superstition. It was a deeply symbolic language for articulating and resolving the complex, unseen tensions that can tear a community apart. Asterisk, the Isangoma sits on a goatskin mat, her collection of divination objects laid out before her on a clean hide. She motions for you to sit opposite her. The Inyanga does not follow you inside. His work is done. This part of the journey is between you, the diviner, and the ancestors she speaks for. The firelight flickers across her face, making her expression shift and dance. The soft clinking of the bones on her wrists is the only sound, The air is thick with anticipation. You are about to witness a reading of the bones, a quiet conversation with the invisible world. You sit on the mat opposite the Isangoma, the small, dancing fire between you. The heat is a living presence, warming your face while the shadows flicker and leap around the curved walls of the hut. The silence in here is different from the calm, botanical quiet of the Inyanga space. This silence is charged, expectant. The Isangoma's eyes are closed, her head tilted slightly, as if listening to a distant conversation. Her breathing is deep and rhythmic, and she begins to hum a low, monotonous chant, a sound that seems to vibrate in your very bones. This is the process of Ukafemba, of clearing the spiritual space and calling upon the ancestors to be present. It's a way of tuning the room and herself to the right frequency for communication. After a few moments, her humming ceases and her eyes open. They are unfocused, looking past you into the shadows. She gathers up her primary divination tools, a collection known as the Ambient. This is not just a random assortment of objects. It is a carefully curated and consecrated set, unique to each diviner. You see a collection of bones, small animal vertebrae, knuckle bones, perhaps the delicate jawbone of a mongoose. There are also other items, seashells that speak of distant journeys, smooth river stones that hold the memory of flowing water, carved pieces of wood, and even a few modern objects like a tarnished brass button or a shard of colored glass. Each item in the set has a specific symbolic meaning, a single word in a complex allegorical vocabulary. The knuckle bones might represent people, men, women, children. The seashells could signify wealth or spirits from across the water. The button might represent a conflict with the outside world. She holds the entire collection cupped in her two hands, bringing them close to her mouth. She begins to whisper to them, her breath warming the cool surfaces of bone and stone. She is not just speaking to the objects themselves. She is addressing the spirits that reside within them, coaxing them, waking them up, and posing the question of your visit. She is asking, in her own sacred language, about the root of the restlessness you carry. Your story, which you told in clumsy words to the Inyanga, is now being translated into a language the ancestors can understand. Then, with a sudden, fluid motion, she casts the amathimbo onto the hide spread between you. They scatter with a dry, clattering sound that seems unnaturally loud in the quiet hut. The sound itself is part of the divination. A loud, energetic clatter might signify a volatile or urgent situation, while a soft, muffled landing could suggest a hidden or slow-moving problem. Now begins the true art of the reading. The Isangoma leans forward, her intense gaze fixed on the pattern the objects have formed. This is not like reading tea leaves or tarot cards, where each symbol is interpreted in isolation. She is reading the entire tableau, the gestalt of the spread. She looks at the relationships between the pieces. Which bones are touching? Which ones are pointing towards each other? Which ones have landed far apart, isolated from the rest? An animal bone representing a family member landing close to a shard of glass might suggest a conflict caused by a foreign influence. A stone representing your own spirit landing upside down and far from the others could confirm your feeling of disconnection. She points a long, slender finger, tipped with a claw, at one of the knuckle bones. This is you, she says, her voice now strangely distant, as if she is narrating a story she is seeing for the first time. See how it has landed on its side, unable to stand. It is weary. She then traces a line in the dust to a small twisted piece of wood. This is a journey you did not complete, a promise you made to yourself that you did not keep. Its shadow still follows you, making your own shadow heavy. The interpretation is metaphorical, poetic, and yet it strikes a chord of truth within you. It's less a prophecy and more a form of profound psychological insight, using the bones as a projective tool to unlock a truth you already held but couldn't articulate. Asterisk, this is a gentle divination. The purpose here is not to frighten you with predictions of doom, or to accuse you of great transgressions. The goal of a responsible Isangoma was always restorative, aimed at re-establishing harmony, or Her role was to identify the source of the discord, so that it could be addressed. A common misconception, often perpetuated by sensationalist accounts, is that these sessions were always about identifying curses or witches. While divination could be used to uncover acts of malevolence, its much more common and fundamental purpose was to diagnose social and spiritual imbalances. One lesser-known outcome of a reading might be the diagnosis of Isangoma, a kind of spiritual stain or dark cloud of misfortune that could cling to a person, making everything in their life difficult. It wasn't a curse from an enemy, but more like a run of bad luck that needed to be spiritually cleansed, often through specific bathing rituals prescribed by the Inyanga. Asterisk, the Isangoma continues to read the bones, weaving a narrative about your life, your relationships, your unspoken anxieties. She speaks of an ancestor, a grandmother, who is feeling neglected, who wishes for you to simply speak her name and remember her stories. She points to a smooth, white seashell. She sends you a gift of calm, the diviner explains, but your hands have been too full of other things to receive it. The imagery is beautiful and comforting. The ancestors are not angry figures demanding appeasement. They are loving relatives, offering guidance. If only you would listen. Asterisk, historians and anthropologists continue to explore the deep, psychological wisdom embedded in this practice. Was the Isangoma truly channeling ancestral spirits? Or was she a master of intuition and cold reading, picking up on subtle cues in your posture and expression? For the Zulu people of the time, this was not a relevant distinction. The ancestors were a real and active presence in daily life, and the Isangoma was their chosen mouthpiece. To question the mechanism was to miss the point entirely. The truth was in the result, the sense of clarity, the identification of the problem, and the clear path forward to restoring balance. Asterisk, finally, she gathers the bones back into her hands, the reading complete. The diagnosis is clear. Your spirit is not afflicted by a curse or an enemy. It is simply disconnected from its roots, from the quiet strength of those who came before you. The prescription is not a sacrifice, but an act of remembrance. Speak to your grandmother, the Isangoma says, her voice returning to its normal cadence, and the path will feel cool under your feet once more. With that, the connection to the other world is closed. The air in the hut feels lighter, the charged energy replaced by a sense of profound peace and resolution. You leave the Isangoma's hut, the clarity of her reading settling over you like a cool, comforting blanket. The prescription and act of remembrance feels simple, achievable, and deeply right. You find the Inyanga waiting for you, sitting quietly on a log just outside, bathed in the silver light of the moon. He doesn't ask what happened inside. He already knows. Not the specifics, but the essence. He can see the change in your posture, the release of tension in your shoulders. The two halves of the diagnosis are complete. The spiritual root has been identified, and the physical manifestations have been soothed. Asterisk, he gestures for you to sit beside him. The night is quiet, the air crisp. For a while, you both just sit, looking up at the vast, starry sky. The Milky Way is a luminous slash of light, a river of stars so dense it seems almost solid. It is a sky that invites contemplation, that dwarfs the small anxieties of a single human life. After a long, comfortable silence, the Inyanga begins to speak, his voice low and raspy. He is not talking about your ailment anymore. Instead, he begins to tell you a story. It is the story of his own beginning, of his long, patient journey to becoming a healer. Asterisk, he tells you that he was not born into a family of healers. His father was a great warrior, his mother a skilled potter. As a boy, he was quiet and observant. more interested in watching insects and tasting the leaves of plants than in learning the arts of combat. This was seen as a strange and slightly worrying eccentricity. My father thought my spirit was soft, he says with a wry, toothless smile. He did not know that the strongest trees often have the softest leaves. His journey began, as it often does, with an illness, not a simple fever or a broken bone, but a long, wasting sickness in his adolescence that no one could understand. He was plagued by strange, vivid dreams in which plants and animals would speak to him, showing him their properties, their pains, and their pleasures. He would wake up shivering, his mind full of knowledge he couldn't explain. This was the classic manifestation of Ukuthwasa, the calling from the ancestors. But at the time, it was simply terrifying. It was the Isangoma who finally recognized his suffering, not as a disease, but as a calling. She told his family, "The ancestors are knocking on the door of his spirit. You must let them in, or they will break the door down." So began his apprenticeship. He was sent to live and study with a renowned Inyanga, an old wizened man who lived miles away, deep in the hills. This was not a quick course of study. An apprenticeship to become an Inyanga could last for years, sometimes even decades. It was a slow, immersive education, with no textbooks and no final exams. The entire curriculum was the world itself. My first year, the Inyanga tells you, I was not allowed to touch a single medicinal plant. My only job was to fetch water, tend the fire, and listen, just listen. He listened to the stories of the patients who came to his master's hut. He listened to the sounds of the veld at night. He listened to the rhythm of his master's grinding stone. He learned that listening was the most important diagnostic tool a healer could possess. He also had to learn, by heart, the names, properties, and uses of hundreds, if not thousands, of plants. This was a monumental feat of memory. A lesser-known fact is that this knowledge was often encoded in songs, poems, and stories. A healer wouldn't just memorize a list of facts. He would learn a song about a particular plant, with the lyrics describing its appearance, where it grew, what it cured, and which other plants it liked to be mixed with. This made the knowledge more resilient, more portable, and far more beautiful than a dry, clinical textbook. It was a living, breathing, oral pharmacopoeia. He shares a funny, humbling story from his early days as an apprentice, eager to prove his growing knowledge. He once confidently identified a plant as a cure for headaches and prepared a poultice for his master, who was complaining of a sore head. His master graciously accepted it, applied it to his forehead, and a few minutes later, broke out in a comical, very itchy rash. The apprentice had mixed it up with a lookalike plant known for causing skin irritation. My master laughed for a full day, the Inyanga recalls, his own eyes twinkling at the memory. He said, "You have learned the most important lesson. A little knowledge is a dangerous snake, and never test your theories on the man who is teaching you." Historians often wonder about the standardization of this knowledge. Without a central medical board or written texts, how is consistency maintained? The answer lies in the rigor of the apprenticeship system. While there were regional variations in practice, the core principles and the knowledge of the most important plants were remarkably consistent. This was ensured by the long training period and the fact that a master would not release his apprentice to practice independently until he was absolutely certain the student had absorbed not just the knowledge, but the ethics and spiritual responsibilities that came with it. The final graduation was often a public ceremony, a declaration to the community that this new healer had the full endorsement of his respected master. The Inyanga tells you that the hardest part of his training was not memorizing the plants, but learning to understand the human heart. His master would often send him to simply sit with a grieving family, or to mediate a dispute between neighbors. He would tell me, "You cannot heal a branch if the roots are in poisoned soil." I had to learn to see the whole tree, the whole forest. This holistic approach is the defining characteristic of his practice. He is not just a herbalist. He is a confessor, a counselor, and a pillar of his community's well-being. Asterisk, as he finishes his story, the moon has climbed higher in the sky. The air is colder now. His tale was not just a nostalgic reminiscence. It was a gift, another form of medicine. By sharing his own journey of confusion and eventual purpose, he has gently reminded you that your own feeling of being lost is not a permanent condition, but a natural, perhaps even necessary, part of a longer path. He has shown you that the most profound knowledge is acquired slowly, patiently, and with a great deal of humility. He claps his hands together softly. The night grows late, he says. It is time for food. Healing is hungry work. Following the Inyanga, you walk back towards the warm heart of the homestead. The moonlight smooths out the rough edges of the world, painting everything in shades of silver and soft charcoal. As you get closer to the main cluster of huts, you notice that a single, larger fire has been built up in a communal area, a good distance from any of an individual family's dwellings. The flames leap and dance, casting a warm, inviting glow and pushing back the cool night air. Several figures are gathered around it, their low, conversational voices, a soft and soothing murmur. Asterisk, the Inyanga leads you towards this small gathering. An older woman, the one who first guided you to his hut, looks up and gives you a warm, welcoming smile. She ladles something from a large, three-legged cast-iron pot that sits near the flames into a small, beautifully carved wooden bowl. She hands it to you. Idla, she says softly. Eat. Asterisk, you take the bowl, which is warm in your hands. Inside is a simple, nourishing meal. The base is a puthu, a thick, crumbly maize porridge, the staple of this world. It's accompanied by a stew of beans and wild greens, seasoned with something subtly savory. It is not a complicated meal, but it is deeply satisfying. The flavors are earthy and honest. As you eat, sitting on a log among these quiet, welcoming people, you begin to understand another crucial layer of the healing process. It wasn't just about a private consultation and a personal remedy. True healing was a communal affair. Asterisk, you are not treated as an outsider or a strange patient to be whispered about. You are simply absorbed into the gentle rhythm of the evening. No one asks you intrusive questions about your visit to the healers. Your presence is accepted with a quiet, dignified grace. A small child, his eyes wide with curiosity, toddles over and stares at you for a moment before his mother gently scoops him up, a soft laugh shared among the group. This simple act of sharing a meal, of being included in the communal circle without question, is a powerful medicine in itself. It's a physical and symbolic reaffirmation that you are not alone in your struggles, that you are part of a community that will hold and support you. Asterisk. This concept of healing as a collective responsibility is central to the Zulu philosophy of Ubuntu, a complex idea that is often translated as, I am, because we are. A person's well-being was never seen in isolation. It was inextricably linked to the health of their family, their community, and their environment. If one person was sick, in body or in spirit, the whole community was considered to be out of balance. Therefore, it was everyone's responsibility to participate, in some small way, in the process of restoring that balance. This could be as simple as sharing food, offering a quiet word of support, or participating in a cleansing ritual. It's the absolute opposite of the often isolating experience of modern illness, where you are expected to handle your struggles privately. Asterisk, you notice the Inyanga and the Isangoma are both here, sitting by the fire. They are not in their professional roles now. They are just members of the community, chatting quietly with their neighbors, sharing the same food from the same pot. It's a beautiful illustration of their integrated role. They were not remote, mystical figures who lived apart from society. They were weavers, integral threads in the social fabric, sharing the same daily life, joys, and sorrows. as everyone else. Their authority came not from being separate, but from being deeply embedded within their community. A lesser known, but charming detail of this communal life was the role of storytelling. After a meal, it was common for an elder to tell a story, and these weren't just simple fairy tales for children. They were sophisticated narratives that encoded the community's history, its values, its laws, and its understanding of the world. A story about a clever rabbit outwitting a powerful hyena wasn't just an animal fable. It was a lesson about how intelligence and cooperation can overcome brute force. A myth about the creation of the world reinforced the proper relationship between humans, nature, and the ancestors. These stories were the community's living constitution and its shared therapy, a way of making sense of the world together. As you finish your meal, feeling the warmth of the food and the fire spread through you, you reflect on the difference between this experience and your own world. You came here seeking a personal cure for a personal problem. You received that in the form of the Inyanga's herbs and the Isangoma's wisdom, but you were also given something you didn't know you needed, a quiet, unassuming sense of belonging. The healing wasn't just the paste on your tongue or the smoke in your lungs. It was in the shared silence with the Inyanga, the poetic insight of the Isangoma, and now, the simple, grounding act of eating a meal with others under the vast African sky. Historians and sociologists often discuss the decline of communal living and its impact on mental health. They debate whether the freedoms of modern individualism have come at the cost of the deep, intrinsic support that communities like this provided. Sitting here, you don't feel like you've lost any freedom. You just feel held. You understand now what the Inyanga meant when he said he had to learn to see the whole forest. Your personal healing is not just about you. It is about re-establishing your connection to the larger ecosystem of family, community, and ancestry. The final part of your prescription is being administered right here in the gentle, crackling warmth of the communal fire. The wooden bowl in your hands is empty now, but you continue to hold it, enjoying its smooth, worn texture. The fire in front of you has settled from a lively dance into a deep, steady glow, pulsing like a warm heart. The embers shift and sigh, sending up occasional flurries of bright, short-lived sparks that ascend into the darkness like prayers, vanishing into the immense, star-dusted canopy above. The meal is over. The Castian pot has been scraped clean and set aside, and the soft murmur of conversation has faded into a comfortable, shared silence. This is a different kind of quiet from the one you experienced in the healers' huts. It is not the focused silence of diagnosis or the charged silence of divination. It is a contented, digestive silence, the natural quiet that follows a shared meal and a long day. It is the sound of a community at peace with itself and with the night. You look around at the faces illuminated by the firelight. Their features are softened, their expressions relaxed. An older man methodically fills a small, carved wooden pipe with tobacco, his movements slow and practiced. A young mother rocks her sleeping child, humming a tune so low it is almost imperceptible. A gentle vibration, more than a sound. You feel a profound sense of slowness settle over you, a welcome antidote to the frantic pace of your own time. Here, time is not a commodity to be managed, saved, or spent. It is a river, and you are simply sitting on its bank, watching it flow. There is no need to check a device for the time, no schedule to keep for the morning. The rhythms are dictated by the sun, the moon, and the needs of the body. When the sun rises, the day begins. When the stomach is hungry, it is time to eat. When the eyes are heavy, it is time to sleep. It's a radically simple and deeply human way of being that your own world has almost completely forgotten. The Inyanga catches your eye from across the fire. He gives you a small, knowing smile, as if he can see the frantic clock inside your head finally winding down. He understands that this quiet, Unstructured time is as crucial to your healing as any of his herbal preparations. He knows that a spirit walking on hot stones needs time to stand still in the cool grass. He is letting the quiet do its work. The flavors of the evening meal linger pleasantly on your palate. The earthy taste of the beans, the slightly bitter note of the wild greens, the hearty, neutral canvas of the maize porridge. Zulu cuisine, at its heart, was about showcasing the natural flavor of its ingredients. There were no complex sauces or elaborate spices to mask the taste of the food itself. Seasoning was often simple, a bit of salt, perhaps some wild herbs, or the richness of a little animal fat if the family was prosperous. The food was a direct connection to the surrounding land. The greens were gathered from the veld, the maize and beans from the family's own fields just outside the umuzi. To eat this meal was to literally ingest the terroir of this specific place. A lesser known but fascinating aspect of traditional Zulu food culture was the concept of or respect, which extended to eating practices. There were certain social rules and avoidances. For instance, a daughter-in-law was often forbidden from eating certain foods, like eggs or the head of a cow, in the presence of her father-in-law as a sign of deep respect. These food taboos were not about nutrition. They were a complex social language, a way of constantly reinforcing kinship ties and the proper order of the household. Historians debate the origins of these practices. Were they about resource management, ensuring prized foods went to the elders, or were they purely symbolic affirmations of the social structure? The answer, as always, is likely a bit of both. As you sit there, digesting this simple, wholesome food, you realize how grounding the experience is. In your world, eating is often a rushed, distracted affair: a sandwich, eaten at a desk, a meal consumed in front of a screen. Here, the meal was an event in itself. The preparation was slow, the eating was communal, and the time after was for quiet contemplation. It was a ritual that nourished not just the body, but the social and spiritual bonds of the community. It anchored everyone to the present moment, to the fire, to each other. A cool breeze whispers through the homestead, making the fire flicker and dance. You pull your simple blanket a little tighter around your shoulders. The air is clean and smells of wood smoke, and the dry, sweet scent of the thatch on the huts. You look up at the sky again, tracing the unfamiliar patterns of the southern constellations. You feel a sense of profound peace, a feeling of being exactly where you are supposed to be. Your mind, which arrived here as a noisy hive of worries and obligations, has finally fallen silent. The evening meal, in its simplicity and its communal grace, has completed the work the healers began. It has filled your stomach, yes, but it has also nourished your soul, reminding you that sometimes the most powerful medicine is simply a warm fire, a full belly, and the quiet company of others. Just as the quiet seems to have settled into a permanent, sleepy rhythm, the old man with the pipe clears his throat. It's a soft, gravelly sound, but it carries a sense of purpose. All eyes turn to him, not with a jolt of surprise, but with a gentle, collective shift of attention. The children who are still awake stop their quiet fidgeting. The adults lean in slightly. The quiet time of digestion is over. The time for stories has begun. The storyteller, or Inyanga, is an elder. His face a beautiful, intricate map of wrinkles, each line a story in itself. He takes a long, slow draw from his pipe, letting the fragrant smoke curl from his lips before he begins. His voice, when he speaks, is not loud, but it has a captivating, resonant quality that effortlessly fills the space around the fire. He doesn't start with "once upon a time." He begins, as is traditional, with a simple, evocative phrase, "KwaZulu-Natal, a story is coming, ... closing parenthesis. He begins to tell a creation myth, but it's not a grand, violent story of clashing titans or cosmic wars. It is a gentle, almost whimsical tale about the first being, Unkalanku, who emerged from a bed of reeds. The story describes how Unkalunku was not a thunderous god, but a patient, thoughtful creator who broke off the first men and women from the reeds, along with all the animals, the rivers, and the mountains. The storyteller uses his hands, his voice dropping to a whisper as he describes the delicate snapping sound of a new mountain being broken from the earth, then rising to a more joyful tone as he lists the animals that tumbled out after it: the swift impala, the ponderous elephant, the chattering monkey. He paints a picture of a world born not in chaos, but in a sort of quiet, organic process, as if the universe was simply growing, like a plant. In this story, Unkalunku also created healers, giving them the special wisdom to understand the language of the plants that he had also brought into being. The story subtly reinforces the worldview you've been immersed in all day, that humanity, nature, and the spiritual world are not separate entities, but are all born from the same source, all part of one interconnected family that began in a humble bed of reeds. As he speaks, you are mesmerized. The firelight flickers on his face, emphasizing his expressions. He becomes the characters, his voice shifting to mimic the high-pitched call of an eagle or the low rumble of a lion. The children listen with wide, unblinking eyes, completely captivated. The adults listen with a different kind of attention, smiling at the familiar parts, nodding at the embedded wisdom. This is not just entertainment. This is a living classroom, a library of oral tradition, and a collective therapy session all in one. The story is reaffirming their shared identity, their values, their place in the cosmos. It is reminding them of who they are and where they come from. One of the fascinating and lesser-known functions of these storytelling sessions was to subtly address social issues or conflicts within the community. The storyteller might choose a tale about two brothers who quarrel over a cow, a story whose moral is about the importance of family unity. Everyone listening would know if two brothers in the umuzi had recently been arguing. The story would allow the issue to be addressed indirectly, without public shaming or direct confrontation, providing a gentle, communal nudge towards reconciliation. It was a sophisticated form of social management, using narrative as a tool for maintaining harmony. The storyteller's tale takes a playful turn. He tells of how the chameleon was sent by Unkalunku to tell humankind that they would be immortal, but the chameleon, being a slow, dawdling creature, stopped to eat some berries along the way. Meanwhile, the impatient Unkalunku sent a much faster lizard with a different message, that all people must die. The speedy lizard, of course, arrived first, delivering his grim news. A short while later, the chameleon finally shuffled into view, panting, ready to deliver his wonderful message of eternal life, only to be told he was too late. And that, the storyteller concludes with a twinkle in his eye, looking around at the circle of smiling faces, is why we must be patient with slow messengers, but also why we must not linger too long when there are berries on the path. The story ends. A collective sigh of contentment ripples through the group. The elder taps the ashes from his pipe. The lesson is over. The story, with its blend of deep cosmology and light-hearted humor, has done its work. It has reminded everyone of the profound and the absurd, the sacred origins of the world and the comical frailties of its creatures. It has created a shared emotional space, a final act of communal bonding before sleep. Historians and linguists who study these oral traditions often debate the degree to which the stories were fixed versus improvised. Was the storyteller a mere reciter of an ancient, unchanging text, or were they a creative artist, weaving in new details and contemporary references? The consensus is that they were both. The core structure and moral of a famous story were preserved with great fidelity, but a truly gifted Inganekwan was a master of improvisation, tailoring the telling to the specific audience and the mood of the evening, much like a skilled jazz musician playing a classic standard. The fire is now mostly embers, a bed of deep, pulsing red. One by one, the families rise and quietly bid each other good night, with a soft murmur of Lala call, sleep well. They disappear into the darkness of their huts. Soon, only you and the Inyanga are left by the dying fire. The great cosmic story has been told. The small human stories of the day are done. Now, all that is left is the deep, restorative quiet of the coming sleep. The night has grown deep and profoundly still. The storyteller's last words seem to hang in the cool air, shimmering like the embers in the dying fire. The homestead is asleep, a collective exhalation of a day lived fully. You and the Inyanga sit in the companionable silence, the vast, starry sky, now the only source of light. He has been a man of few words for much of the evening, letting the community, the food, and the stories perform their own kind of healing. But now, he turns to you, his face lit by the soft, red glow of the coals. Asterisk, the story is a medicine for the community, he says, his voice a low, raspy whisper, but a single herb is sometimes needed for the traveler. He reaches into the small leather pouch he wears at his side, the one he carried on your walk through the veld. His movements are slow, deliberate. You watch his hands, weathered and wise, as they carefully retrieve a small, tightly wrapped bundle. He holds it out to you in his open palm. Asterisk, it is a small parcel, no bigger than your thumb, tied with thin, strong blades of grass. It's made from a single, large, soft leaf, folded with the precision of origami. Even in the faint light, you can see it is a gift made with care and intention. He gestures for you to take it. The leaf is smooth and slightly waxy to the touch, and the bundle is surprisingly fragrant. The clean, sharp scent of the African wormwood you gathered together is unmistakable, but it's mingled with another aroma, something sweet and calming, like dried lavender or a chamomile. Asterisk. This is for your journey home, he explains. Not the one you will walk with your feet, but the one you will walk in your mind when you are back in your own world. He tells you what is inside. There is a small piece of the amandi root, the African ginger, to chew on if you feel your strength fading. There are the dried leaves of the insingusi, the wormwood, to burn as a cleansing smoke if your thoughts become cluttered and noisy again. And there is a third ingredient, one you did not gather. He tells you it is the flower of the intilissi, a plant known for its protective and calming properties. It will remind your spirit of the cool grass, even when you are walking on hard stone. He says, asterisk, this final gift is a beautiful encapsulation of his practice. It is both deeply practical and profoundly symbolic. He is giving you tangible medicine, the ginger with its scientifically recognized stimulating properties, the wormwood with its antimicrobial and calming aromatic oils. But he is also giving you a powerful psychological anchor, a sensory link back to this night, to this place of healing. The smell of the herbs, the texture of the leaf-wrapped bundlet, is all designed to trigger the memory of this piece, to be a touchstone you can return to when the noise of your world becomes overwhelming. Asterisk. This practice of giving a departing patient a small take-home remedy was common. One of the more charming, lesser-known details is that these bundles were often personalized, not just to the ailment, but to the person's journey. Someone facing a long walk might be given herbs for endurance. Someone returning to a difficult family situation might be given plants associated with harmony and conflict resolution. The Inyanga was not just treating the person. He was thinking ahead, anticipating the challenges of their road, and equipping them with the tools they would need. It was a continuity of care that extended far beyond the walls of his hut. Asterisk, he also gives you a final piece of advice, a piece of wisdom that has nothing to do with herbs or plants. He looks you directly in the eyes, his gaze steady and kind. Do not forget the ancestors, he says. They are not hungry for grand sacrifices. They are only thirsty for your memory. Speak their names. Tell their stories. A person is a river, not a puddle. You did not begin with yourself. This echoes the Isangoma's diagnosis. but hearing it from him, in the quiet of the sleeping homestead, it lands with a simple, profound weight. It is the core of the entire day's lesson, distilled into a few simple sentences. Asterisk, you hold the small, fragrant bundle in your hand, feeling its weight, its texture. It feels like a concentration of the entire day's experience. The walk on the red earth, the quiet consultation, the journey into the starlit veld, the wisdom of the diviner, the warmth of the communal fire. It is a promise that the healing you've found here is not fleeting, that you can carry a piece of this quiet world with you. Asterisk, historians often struggle to convey the depth of these healing traditions, as they are so deeply rooted in an experience of the world that is sensory and spiritual, not just clinical. A written description of a plant's properties can never capture the full meaning of receiving that plant as a gift from a trusted healer, wrapped in a soft leaf and accompanied by words of wisdom spoken under a canopy of stars. The debate over the efficacy of traditional medicine so often misses this point. The medicine was never just the substance. It was the entire context, the relationship, the story, the intention. Asterisk, the Inyanga places his hand briefly on your shoulder, a gesture of quiet blessing and farewell. Go now, he says gently. The morning will come soon. Rest is the final medicine of the day. He indicates a small, empty hut nearby, set aside for visitors. It is your turn to disappear into the quiet darkness, to let the lessons of the day settle and take root in the fertile soil of sleep. You have received your final gift, a small bundle of peace for the journey ahead.